Welcome to Living Your Greatness. Each episode, we bring on great people to inspire you to achieve your greatness. We discuss topics all related to health and wellness. Listen to world-class stories, learn valuable lessons, and turn knowledge into action. It is now time for you to unlock your inner greatness. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Living Your Greatness. This is your host, Ben Mummy, and today we have a new guest to the show, and his name is Chris Adam. Chris directs the Sustainability Office at Dawson College. Chris has been recognized for his abilities in the field of education, both nationally as well as internationally, combining his background in wildlife and fish management, education, and leadership training. Chris was involved with the research and application of sustainable happiness, a concept pioneered by Dr. Catherine O-Brien. Chris coordinates the Living Campus platform at Dawson College, is the president of several public and private organizations, and sits on the board of the Dawson Foundation. His experience is in communicating environmental issues to the public at large and engaging people of all ages, action projects that contribute to well-being for all. So Chris, it is a pleasure to have you with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome, Chris. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you spend your formative years growing up in Canada? How did sustainability come into your life? And what inspired you to become a sustainability coordinator?
Well, I'll try to unpack that, and you can guide me and connect some dots because there's a lot there. I'm first generation Canadian, son, and I have three sisters of parents. My father was from Lithuania, and my mother was from what was then Germany, now Poland after the war. And we settled on the south shore of Montreal in a very rural area because land was cheap, and that's where you would begin as an immigrant. And I had a childhood with lots of discovery, swamps and forests and fields. I can say in one way, unfortunately, a highway cut me off from the friends on the other side that I went to school with, but I can certainly reflect now, 60 years later, saying what a godsend that was. It forced me to be exposed to that solitude and nature that was such a big part of who I am today. And I can still dig deep and dive into that time that I spent countless hours just watching, thinking, reflecting, being creative. So I now have the vocabulary to discuss some of the things that I think happened to me then, but they were indeed formative years. I still say to this day, although I did go to school and, had my schooling, that was just part of my education. The biggest part of my education that I tap into today was definitely what I experienced before I was 12 years old. And that's not to take anything away from what happened afterwards, but so important. I didn't compare myself to other people. So I was able to be very creative. When a child makes a sand castle, for example, I use this example in a sandbox, and you don't compare it to anything. That's the best sand castle in the world. And that does a lot about self-esteem and confidence. When I discovered things by myself, either through observation or connecting it to a book that I got, I would devour nature-related books. That's all I ever wanted. Every Christmas, every birthday present, I had my own little library. And again, there was no comparison. So I'll be talking later that our technology today is wonderful if it's used properly, but one of the downsides is within an instant, somebody's doing something better than you are, and you go, why begin? It might take you a year, 5 years, 10 years. That deferred gratitude is being chipped away in the generation that I see. So that's part of my work as well. So I was a naturalist. And the simple definition is someone who enjoys nature, loves nature, and discovers it by using the senses. And I thought, I want that job. And I've spent my career developing exactly that. So how do we use nature as mentor to teach what we do? Because disciplines in education, I'm an educator. I believe in education, but the first thing we do is we chop it up, right? I believe every discipline is a piece of the environmental education in that sense. There's now over 8,000 disciplines. So you can become an expert and work really hard, but you're getting further and further removed from that whole. And that, I think, the the consequence of that are some of the social ills that we see in the environmental problems that you witness anytime you turn on the television or you look at the news. So that beginning is really important, that what I call risk capital that I developed and was supported by my parents. Just go out and discover, be good, be honest. And when you have that risk capital, you can do things. You don't have to necessarily know how you're going to do it, but you have the confidence to start. And I still use that skill today. So again, in our current system, we tend to learn A leads to B, and then it goes to C. I mean, it might go to D or E, but it's very linear. And we learn all the skills we're supposed to have on the way. And then we're kicked out of the system and we're supposed to put life back together. And we realize it doesn't quite always work A, B, C, D, right? You've got to zigzag and wayfind, as they say in creative circles. You need to wayfind your way to that vision you have and have the confidence to get there. So there's a lot that happened in between, but there's no way I would be in this position sitting in an office now, changing the system, because change rubs, there's a friction point, right? It could be looked at negative when you hit policies and guidelines and these squares we call job descriptions and union policies. All of these things block sustainability or well-being for all. It's part of the old system. So I look at that as that friction as positive growth. And in this office, a problem is a challenge. And that all comes from still what I tap into it from my youth, that it's risk capital, and we'll find a way. We don't have to know how now, but we have to sit here and be confident and say, we've got the people in this building or around us that can find the way. The knowledge and skill is somewhere, and everybody has a place. Absolutely everybody has a place. And how do we make sure people are engaged and feel a sense of agency to help each other and the planet? So even when I use the word sustainability, which I will with you, I tend to shy away from that if I'm not in an academic setting. We use well-being for all. And we say for all because well-being is used quite often, and it's often related to people. But what about all the life that supports us? What about all the non-living parts of the planet that support that life? So for us at Dawson, it's well-being for all. That's our vision. We have to make sure that we're taking care of each other, ourselves, and the planet, all of it. And that vision point then trickles down into the activities that we want to do.
So Chris, thanks a lot for giving that introduction. Something that I want to start off with here, I know you focused on well-being for all, but sustainability in general, when people hear the topic, it's pretty big and it can sometimes seem overwhelming or confusing at times. What does sustainability mean to you?
Well, it used to, if you go back to 87 in the Brundtland Commission, it was, the big splash at the time, and the word sustainability wasn't even coined yet. So remember, it's fairly recent. And I'll just add that there's a lot of people my age that now run institutions, not only educational ones, but institutions in general, work hard, do great work, that were never exposed to this new word and new concept. So at the time, it changed into the triple bottom line, responsible economic growth or development, social justice issues in the broadest sense of that word, and then environmental integrity. And, I'm envisioning the three circles and where they intersect, that's the sweet part of sustainability. And that stayed with us for several decades. But if I move forward to 2021, I have, a really strong feeling that there has to be a spiritual component in this, like meaning of life. Some people might associate spirituality with religion. I don't necessarily. It's spiritual, being spiritual in the sense that, why are we here? What are we doing? What is our connection to other things and the responsibility that comes with that? That I find is a really important ingredient and an overlay to all of the triple bottom line. So today I would say, if I had to draw those circles, it's the biosphere first, living and non-living things. And then the social justice, very important, economic prosperity. People can't care for the planet if they don't know where their food's coming from, or their safety issues. So they're all equally important in sense of, depending on where you are in the world, there may be different priorities in those three, but the biosphere, the ecological integrity is that circle that envelops everything. And And then what I try to do is I try to develop programs to say what is going to make that model of sustainability work, what I'm now turning into well-being for all. If we don't have situations where we look at social justice issues or safety or environmental integrity, where we can't share positive emotions and we can't build positive relationships, it's a moot point. In fact, our educational system is proof of that. If all we're doing is filling the information bucket, increasing the skill set, and not focusing on the attitudes, the values, the beliefs of people, and sharing them, then, well, the evaluation is out there. It doesn't work. Knowledge is not the answer. In fact, I would even say money is not the answer. To me, there's a crisis in will and spirit. We've got to replace apathy with hope. And where does that come from? That takes time in a curricula that's packed with objectives to fill the information and skill bucket. So I'm dealing with that all the time. And I want to wayfind, that term I use, wayfind projects where we explicitly take time to say, are people making friends while they're learning? Are we listening and being tolerant of different views? That's critical to all the projects that we develop here at Dawson in this office. And that's what part of what we describe as a living campus. You live the learning. Yes, there's some discipline-centric material, but what we try to do is then do that helicopter view. What are you trying to teach? What are you trying to do with your para-academic activity? What are you trying to do with this club? But are you meeting basic social needs that we all have to enjoy, engage, and flourish? We want a flourishing community that teaches about disciplines, right? A flourishing educational system isn't one that keeps on pumping out graduates with all kinds of degrees, has the highest, grade average, the typical things that we tend to use and focus on, not part of my sustainability equation. So yeah, it's a nice mix. It's a holistic view of reconnecting, spiritual component, and let the individual define that and have the time to think about that, with that ecological integrity first, social justice, and economic prosperity.
So thanks for sharing your definition there. The word sustainability can mean different things to different people, depending on the context of what is being sustained. What are the three pillars of sustainability, and why do you think they are important?
Let me backtrack and give a really important context again. And I want to repeat that I love education. I'm in a school that's part of education and just part of it. And I'm dedicated to trying to change that system. Depending on the literature you read, maybe 8% of the world's population has a college degree or a university degree. Yet those, I'll just say 7 to 8%, control almost 100% of all decisions at the government level in all countries. And again, I would ask rhetorically, where are we? So I am by no means saying education is not important, but I'm also saying it's not the answer. So then you backtrack there, and I'll get to my definition again of these three pillars. I think the pillars themselves, we identify the obvious ones that I've just mentioned. But what about the other ones? Where's the spiritual one? Where's the one that says to flourish, the more connections I have to people and other things, the more I have a sense of belonging, the more I flourish. The more I flourish, the more I can actually contribute to those three pillars we've identified. So I almost see the three pillars that we talked about, environmental, social justice, economic development, of sustainability from Brundtland onwards, as a two-dimensional definition of sustainability. And I firmly believe that you and I are quickly entering another phase where it becomes this more of a three-dimensional, they're moving. And an important gel in all of this is this humanization that you've mentioned, Ben, that I think we just need to go back and know exactly who we are and make sure that we carve time to be just who we are, caring people who innately want to help. But we focus on those that have problems. We focus on world issues. The media, in my view, has been irresponsible and certainly doesn't help the sustainability cause. We need to rethink these pillars. And wherever you find those things I'm talking about, for some people, it might be summer camp. For some people, it might be church. For some people, it might be the books that they read. but we just need to go back to basics and reconnect. And there are different ways to do that. And I repeat, I think everyone has a place in that. And we've lost these significant others. They've been replaced by movie characters and the amount of time that we spend on screens. When I was last in the classroom and I taught leadership training for over 20 years, I asked a class how much time they spend in front of screens, non-homework time. So the average was about 4.6 hours per day, including the weekends. But on the high end of that, there were students that spent 7, 8, 9 hours a day. And once, for whatever reason, they were satisfied with girls at the time, it was mostly Facebook, social media. With the guys, it was the games, the gaming they like to do. When they satisfied that, then they went in sometimes at homework, towards 12 or 1 in the morning. Now that was one class, but it was very striking. I spent the equivalent time building those sandcastles, wondering how a bee finds its way home. How does a plant know which way is up? Why doesn't it grow down? Why is the sky blue and not purple? So I was exercising the skill we call imagination and creativity. But if you ask someone what a skill is, they're going to talk, well, if you want to be a good basketball player, you've got a 10,000-hour rule. You better practice hockey, painter. But imagination, creativity, problem solving, how many hours do we spend on that? So I'm very conscious, having my own children, how much time did they spend on the things I did as compared to just filling? I mean, we know the television laughs for you, right? You can't even laugh at a joke on your own. They'll put the laugh track in and tell you when you're supposed to laugh. It's gotten that bad. Zoos, for example, are still, the more people go to zoos annually than many sports events combined. We have an innate attraction to nature and the wonder and awe of it all. And we need to make sure we nourish all of these things, because we're not practicing key things that we need to solve the problems that we've created today. So all of that, to me, when you ask me what is sustainability, it's a beautiful sphere of humanizing. Education is the method, but it's this whole need to get back to basics and reconnect, and then worry about disciplines.
So Chris, if we're trying to reconnect, what role does education play in sustainability?
Well, I'm sitting in a college right now talking to you, in a small country in terms of population, Canada, but a huge one geographically. We could very well be many countries with different cultures, and that's a beautiful part of Canada, and that with that comes challenges. So I think, if we take all the colleges in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, over 95% of Canada's population lives within 50 kilometers of a college. And I get that stat from College and Institutes Canada, which does great work across the network. We have the power. We have the power to influence the majority of our population. So what I believe is, if we can raise the bar in what we expect from us as an educational institution, that includes partnerships, best practice sharing, rethinking, reshaping education to meet the needs of society today, and certainly our environment, then all we need to do is each get a mentor or two. And when we're at that magic change theory number of, some people say as low as 12%, the high end is 20, but let's just take the 12 because it's easier. If we can influence 12% of our network, they will influence 50% of the others. And then change theory shows once you're there, you're going to get another 25, 30. That's wonderful. So I think of that. And when someone says, well, Chris, how are you going to do that? I don't know, but I'm going to find a way. And the first step is to change ours, and then collect some partners, and then form a really positive group that's excited. And I see it happening, and I feel it happening, right? So knowing and feeling has to come together too. You know very well, Ben, in the work that you've done and the title of your podcast, that how we feel drives so much motivation and skill and knowledge in the right direction, whereas apathy just sucks it and it becomes a parking lot. So I'm very conscious of that we need colleges where there's a spark. And it's okay if people say, why do you work there? I don't know, but it's a great place. People say hi to you. I get these types of comments, but behind those, I realize what's happening. They're validated for who they are. They get to share who they are, and there's time for that. They have friends where they work. You don't get comments like that, right? When you leave a community and you feel you're not going into one. So the words we use in different programs, building community, leadership training, those aren't cheap words. So HR needs to look at those. Our facilities department needs to look at those carefully. How does the building teach? In fact, buildings teach us as much as the classrooms, if not more. You've been there. You're there now. I'm still a lifelong learner. When I sit in a classroom and I hear someone talking, I can't help but look around. I look out the window. Landscape defines us. So what are you doing out there? How is the building cleaned? Is there that spark when you walk through it? Do they practice what they preach? And that's what I want to change in education, that the buildings have to show the values we talk about in the classroom, that we need theory bursts. You guys can look up anything you want at your age. So what are we doing? We should guide you to where that is. And after that, get you excited about helping each other and the planet. And you'll teach yourself an awful lot. And with technology today, the beautiful part of it is you can teach more people than I can if you decide to get on social media and say, oh my God, I'm over here and this happened, it's amazing. And a day later, 50,000 people have looked at it. That is powerful. It is powerful. So that's encouraging for me. If we use everything in the right way, and I think we're at that sort of cross point, the pendulum of all this sort of problems and negativity is still moving that way, but it's going to come back quickly. And I'm very optimistic about that. And if it doesn't, I just want to be part of that pressure to get it there. And if we often hear, and I still get questions like, well, why do you put in so much time? Why do you care? You can't guarantee this is going to happen. Absolutely not. But happiness that I talk about is not the destination, right? Think about being a child where you go, your first birthday party. And I feel like this in my job today, but I'll use the birthday party for a 4-year-old. Daddy or mom, how many sleeps until my friends can come over? And you say 4 more. Oh my God, they're happy. They can't sleep because they don't necessarily know what that is, perhaps, but it's soon. And the next day, how many sleep? There's 3 more. And you start decorating, right? All that happiness, if you could weigh it, outweighs the birthday party. In fact, the birthday party, when we get older, is often a point of stress because we're worried about what we're going to be doing. So that's something we want to repeat here. The journey is the fun part. And then we can certainly validate the end part of it. And that's what people are saying when they say, I like working there. Simple comment, but we take the time to unpack that. And that's my goal in education. We should be leaving a community and we should be going into another community that we enjoy for the same reasons. Friendships, sharing, I'm validated for who I am. It's fun. So how do you do that when you develop a project? And that's what we do. Sustainable happiness.
You brought up a lot of really great points there, Chris. And it actually makes me think of my next question. Over the past 20 years, there has been some movement forward, right? Sustainability education has grown dramatically throughout society and no longer limited to teaching sustainability only in schools or colleges or universities. It now takes place in homes, in boardrooms, in community meetings, and volunteer groups. So what do you believe is the best way to teach sustainability?
Model it whoever you are. And if you're an adult, you have to understand, and you do, but you need to always be reminded when you're cool, when you get a compliment, it's because people like you. They want to dress like you. They want to speak like you. They want to do what you do. They're identifying usually one thing, but with that comes the package. And that's a tremendous responsibility. We know kids absorb those values from significant others. Often it's parents, but not always. It could be a neighbor, it could be a minister, right? It could be anyone, teachers particularly. So whatever they like about you then becomes a package. So if we act responsibly and we take the time to help each other, And we teach them that, this is important, this topic, but it's not as important as this issue right now. We need to help this person. We need to help our school. We need to help our community, right? When you put up, here we planted a roof, for example, a reforestation project, and we planted some flowers and we left the seeds on the roof, and several birds came to eat. They said they would migrate over Montreal. We're 2 kilometers from downtown, and we've been greening our small city block. One of the students had the wherewithal to take a picture of a warbler, for those birders listening, and we could identify it. And that warbler had no business being in downtown Montreal, but it had to fly here, and it recognized something that said food, safety, shelter from a storm, I don't know. And it came down and it was eating. Well, we celebrated that, because here, that's an evaluation for Dawson College. That is a final evaluation of that project. Not whether the students can write a long paper, which they did and they worked hard on. The fact that a living creature that we know very little about stopped and took a rest here and ate enough insects or seeds to fly another 1 or 2 or 3 or 1,000 kilometers is an evaluation that we are starting to look at well-being for all. That makes you feel good, probably, and you weren't even here. So we put that up on our screens. Congratulations, everyone. Hundreds of collective hours of work, hauling soil through our building. There it is. Students identified 104 species of insects in one after the first summer. That's up on our screens. And at first it was kind of people saying, what are you doing this for? Now, it's a total celebration. Total celebration. Birds nesting. We had a duck nest on our roof 5 times. That posed other problems. How do they get it? What do we do with the babies? Well, we bring in a swimming pool and we fill it up with pond goop. Where are we going to get pond goop? The whole community came, and then we had visitors, and the local daycare would come. And I remember one of our cleaners was cleaning the nose prints and the fingerprints of the little girls and boys who used to come and just watch the ducks grow from the local daycare. And while he's doing that with a smile, I asked him what his name was. Because of the project, I met someone whose job it is to clean. And he said he loved to see the little girls and boys come and watch the ducks. And it reminded him of his childhood in the Philippines. And we told each other stories. You see, friendships, positive emotions, positive relationships, because we spent hundreds of hours that could have been identified as a biology class. The nursing students did a paper on the power of the outdoors. Our Journeys, our Indigenous group came, and they were learning a second language through this project. All of that is warranted and beautiful. But you see what I mean by taking the 3 dimensions of it? And this is proof of it. We got to know each other more as a community because we built so many relationships and we validated them. And that's what I want to do in education. And that's what everybody can do in education, really, in their own way. They just need to be inspired and be told, do it. If you're teaching math for 10 hours, teach it in 8 and spend 2 changing the world.
Absolutely. You brought up a great story there, Chris. So thanks for sharing that. There's been so much incredible work that both yourself as well as your whole school community has done. But something that I want to focus on is you are the pioneer and the innovator of a living campus at Dawson. What is a living campus, and what led to the birth of this concept? And how does a living campus contribute to well-being for all?
Well, it's really an umbrella. Living school is often used. I just used campus because we're an institute of higher education, but we also work with living schools. There's a living lab movement that's more commonly called living lab. I just felt it had very school-like connotations to that and control. It's the only difference for the word. But a living campus is sort of it's a platform here that has attributes. I've been working with Dr. O-Brien and Patrick Howard at Cape Breton University, where we look at the different attributes, leadership, and how we integrate Indigenous philosophies. What values and visions do you want? So here, for Dawson, the vision is well-being for all. We want to look at sustainability principles and inject them into as many courses and activities as we can, but not in a dry way. And we want to make sure that by doing projects that help each other and the planet, so authentic projects, not let's pretend we're going to manage the rainwater coming off the roof. No, Can we build a marsh in downtown Montreal that will clean the water from our roof, take the copper from our heritage rooftop, the copper oxides out, and return clean water to the landscape? That's multiple student projects. So that's what we try to focus on. And what these projects then do is, again, we have the positive relationship part of it. Then we have a project where different disciplines can actually meet their competencies, right? There's something tangible at the end of it that they can see. So it becomes very authentic. So Living Campus is about authentic learning experiences. In pedagogy, we say high impact practices. Research, action research is part of that as well. That brings in things like problem solving, imagination, and creativity using sustainability principles. So they're not acting alone. And if you can do that and really live the learning, as I said earlier, that's a living campus. We're not just filling the information and skill bucket and touching on attitudes. We're actually using that. So the equivalent of a theory burst, action. And then we move forward from there. So one of the things we like to say is that we learn by doing. And it's easier done in some disciplines than others, but we're slowly chipping away at that. Just trying to make what students are learning as practical as possible, to bring back that notion that you're learning to make the world a better place.
Okay, great. So Chris, students and staff at Dawson College have led some impressive living campus projects. Could you please share some of the great projects that your school community has created?
Well, I'll focus on ones that are started by students, and there's so many. You know, we have bees on the roof, and I can stop there. So I'm going to try to look at that sphere that I just told you about. How do we unpack this, the beauty of it all? And I said, okay, so these were two girls years ago. What if we wanted two hives on the roof? Money is the last thing we look at, because often that's the first thing. And then we go, we don't have the money, so we can't do it. It's terrible. And of course, you know, change theory will also teach you that if you start with why something won't work, there's a 50% chance already it won't. So we don't start that way. And this was a large part of program design and risk management. So how do you connect honeybees to risk management? Well, it's everything. But we're taught, no, I teach risk management, you teach biology, the bees belong over there. How do you get 20, 30,000 bees on the roof of a building when you're not going to take a big ladder and go up there? This is on our 5th or 6th floor. So that was part of the project. You certainly can't bring bees in and somebody drops something and there's 10,000 students. So all of a sudden, wow, I've got to use my skill set and really start designing something. My objective is to have the bees on the roof to pollinate our gardens. How far do they fly? So long story short, we figure all that out. They come at night. No one's in the building. We've got a couple of security guards. We had the bees up there at 12 o'clock. And we now have 80,000 bees producing honey, and we give that honey to all of our guests. That was two students who started that project. In fact, that rooftop is now a green roof, and will offset our greenhouse gases because we don't have to air condition the rooms below it as much. We've had students look at all of our lighting, which is recycled. Again, students started that, saying, what do we do with our lights? And discovered it went into a compactor. That compactor was adjacent to our shipping department. And then the question became a human one. Who works in shipping where those bulbs are crushed, and how many? Because the student said, we're told if you break a fluorescent bulb, you should open up the window and stay out of the room for several hours. Well, there's the interest. And they started, they did their project. They had to put it into an executive summary of less than 2 pages because they realized busy people who work hard cannot afford the time to read large projects. And they deposited that, and a day or two later, Dawson recycled 100% of its bulbs. Not because necessarily they wrote that we should. They wrote why we should, the health concerns. They figured out that the equivalent of bulbs we threw out in a month could permanently contaminate an entire city block the size of Dawson, so people could visualize that. And by the way, here's a company in Montreal we've researched. They're local. They recycle the mercury, phosphorus, the glass, and the metal. They did all the research for everyone. Here's the phone number. Here's the contact person. See, to me, that meets total program design competencies, risk management, respects the worker and the time they do, and we had results within 48 hours. And then we validate that. So we have hundreds of projects a semester, not all with that type of an impact, but many of them do. A student wanted to start composting 3-4 years ago here. She started with little bins. We couldn't find people to, typically the negative came out. We can't, who's going to collect all this stuff? What if it spills? What about fruit flies? Perfect problem. And she said, I will volunteer. You see, that's the difference, what we teach. Don't point fingers. I will volunteer and empty them every day. Well, it became so popular, she couldn't empty them all. But she actually, I say she delayed her university education. She'd be smiling if she heard me. She forgot to register, but she came here all semester. She loved it here. And now I don't have to tell you why she loved it here. Same thing. There was a spark and energy. She felt validated. And the college was so impressed that they decided to invest in recycling centers, compost, recycling, and waste in every hallway of every wing of our building, 8 floors, whole city block. And not only that, they just made an executive decision to get rid of all garbage cans because those are the fossils from the past. And we don't want people walking down our hall in a building that should inspire about well-being for all. And there's a garbage can every certain number of feet, as the guidelines suggest. So they got rid of all the garbage cans, and we now recycle 1.1 tons of compost per week, about 80 tons of other recyclables, reduced our greenhouse gases. And that's just one example of one person who said, I will make the commitment. And it's that motivation and commitment, I think, that moved many people saying, we can't let these students down. We know them. We know the energy they put in. And I'm just giving you now real examples of what we put into play. So there's this philosophy and the concept behind it as we plan and leave room for reflection and socializing and brainstorming for those humanizing objectives that we have. And then there's clear objectives we have within disciplines or within those spheres, environment, social justice, or economic development. And we try to balance them as best we can, accept the mistakes we make, and get back on that bicycle called sustainability and keep going. And there's many other examples, biophilic design. I haven't really said much about the social justice issues. It could be as simple as a swimming pool full of balls. Each one has a question on it, two empty chairs with a sign in a very open area for students. Take a seat, pick up a ball, wait for someone else to sit down, ask them that question. Just, that was a student project. People loved it. Teachers loved it. You want to sit down and ask somebody, I could ask you a question, what's your hobby? And you get an instant response and different, your face starts to relax, there's smiling, there's eye contact. So yeah, we have a lot of fun.
Thanks so much, Chris, for sharing a lot of those living project examples. What is one that you are most proud of? And is there a specific story that you want to share?
There are many. The simplest ones to me are the most profound. One is from a cleaning staff, and because I want to practice my Spanish and she's Spanish, I talked to her and she said, I really like it here at Dawson. So I asked her a simple question, why? And she said, people say hello to me here. Simple as that. And that to me meant that we're doing something right too. And we happened to talk beside a water refill station, which we, again, think about. We put them in what we call high stress zones. We don't put them anywhere. So where you go to facilities, often teachers or staff go with complaints, or HR departments. You tend not to go to HR to say, how are the kids to somebody? You tend to go because of some benefit issue, or so we placed them there, and that's where I met her. So it was working. Those small conversations by the water cooler are everything. The water's secondary. So there's thinking behind that placement. And I benefited from that and got to know someone and how she wants to clean as quickly as she can because her shift ends at 7 a.m. and the school opens at that point, and then she's got to go. And she says, I want to get home to see my kids before they go to school. So our conversation humanized her job and my workplace. So I experienced, what we're trying to do here on a personal level. And another one I just quickly like to share with you, Ben, and I have permission to do so. A student was going through some family issues, and she was from another country and her family was split up. And she's in our science program, which is very competitive. So she She went to university here for 2 years just to get her English up to speed, to come here to take the pre-med program so she could try to apply. Stress level very high for personal and I'll call them professional schooling reasons, and had trouble sleeping, and was given medication to do so, still couldn't sleep because of the stress, and decided, okay, I have so little time to do everything I want with all the issues, but I'm going to take some time to volunteer in the gardens with the sustainability office. So she stayed with us for 2 hours, and she's spoken at 2 conferences with me now, and she has wonderful heat island work she's working on here at Dawson, which I could talk about. But she opened both conferences by saying, it's because I volunteered, it's because I decided to give back, and I met wonderful people, peers at my college, and I could speak to them, and I made friends, and I could deliver beautiful food to the homeless people down the street who need it. I felt so much better. My stress level went down. My doctor took me off medication, and I'm telling you now, it's because I volunteered. And I think that's as important, that 5 minutes she took before she talked about her great science work, as anything else. And I personally got more feedback and shared with her. More people were so struck by her introduction than from her actual work, which is amazing work, as I say, in and of itself. So it's just proof to me that we're doing something right. And in our busy educational system where people work really hard, and both in development and energy they put into it. I know I've been critical of it, but I'm not critical of the hardworking people. It's just we are part of a system that we need to step out of, rethink, and then go back in. And I had the privilege to do that in a sense in my youth. And I went back to school in my 40s after I dropped out of the system that wasn't nourishing the love that I had for the environment. So I'm hoping in my own way, in the mistakes that I make, to bring that to an educational system and help it flourish more perhaps than it has, or flourish in a different way. Absolutely. To repurpose education. That would be a great way for me to end my comment. That those examples I'm giving you is part of a repurposing to humanize the system. And then I think we're going to help take the edges off what we're calling sustainability of the past, and give it a real, more of a human definition and impact.
Awesome, Chris. Thanks for sharing both of those stories. Just so inspiring, honestly. So, Chris, something that I admire about you is your creativity, your innovation, and your entrepreneurship skills. Why are these skills important when becoming a champion for sustainability, or, as you say, well-being for all?
Well, to be quite honest, I still think about that. What is my role? And I would hope, I do bring the knowledge and skill that I speak of into this job. But I think by far, it's this whole notion of visualizing what you want and just having the confidence to say there's a way to get there. And you don't have to have the answers. And it's okay to be vulnerable. I would say one of my strengths is I'm vulnerable. I don't mind telling people, I don't know. I know I can do it, but I don't know how. And people go, shit, can I help you? It happened this morning. It literally happened this morning. Someone just said, it was a 10-minute conversation. I'm in. Don't forget about me. I'm in. So this whole notion of starting something exciting, worthwhile, I think clear visions are essential. And depending on where you're sitting and with who, you have to be able to take, well, that's just a dream. Mm-hmm. What does the just mean? Because everybody likes them. But unless somehow we can quantify something immediately, it's put aside. And I think that confidence that I mentioned to you in my youth, just do it your way. And let someone say, there's a better way. And if you did it over here, you'd be more efficient. Great. But don't tell me, because you work in this box, you're not supposed to be doing that. And we forget, is it right or wrong? Is it good? And we lose some really amazing people because that's not their job description. It's 5 o'clock and society says, don't put in an extra hour. They're not paying you for it. My adage is, what do I want out of life? What do I want out of my job? I come to a community, and if I don't feel it, I create it. And I'll put in the time, and I'll put in the money too. That's why I feel so good when I come to work. I can't wait to come to work, but I put in a lot of energy to make it what it is. And then there's a spillover. I was just told the other day by a fellow manager, I think you have the best job in the college. And beneath my smile, I go, yeah, I do. But you also have no idea of the sacrifice of time and energy. So you have to make what you want. And I have learned what you read about. Deferred gratitude is important. Just chip away, be good. And I believe happy, positive people attract the same kind. And with that comes that knowledge and skill that we've picked up. And if you can package that into that sphere, you're going to bounce it into places you didn't intend to go, but you're going to enjoy the ride. So I'm just encourage everyone to find that space. And when you know someone can do that and life has just happened to them, we all go through these times. Are you going to be the one to help that person at that point? And then you put your head on your pillow. You might be exhausted. You missed that great event with your friends. But, you know, the world is just a bit better because you did what you did. I think of that all the time. When I miss something, it's hard. But I also tell myself sometimes I'll go home and I'll have a beer and I go, oh, geez, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this tomorrow or the next day? You know, as a teacher. And then I just stay confident. And if I've gotten into classes and I've said, I don't know quite how we're going to do this, but hey, let's figure it out. And it invariably it happens. So believe you belong, believe you have a place, hold somebody's hand and go there.
That's beautiful, Chris. So much wisdom there to unpack. You said a lot of really valuable life lessons. So I appreciate that. And I'm sure my listeners are as well. In your view, what is most important in fostering behavior change for sustainability?
Well, I think I'd have to get back to keywords again. You know, what does it mean to be in a place that flourishes? What does it mean when you can sense somebody feels they belong? Once we're rooted in those, you know, that sense of community, and I am connected, and I'm okay with who I am. It doesn't mean realization that I need to learn more, I need to change, but I'm okay with who I am and I'm accepted for who I am. That's the beginning point. Instead of being told you don't know enough, you don't do enough, you're in the wrong place, they're taking advantage of you. I've learned, Ben, that if you trust people, there are some that will take advantage of it. But it's no reason not to trust. Keep on trusting. Sometimes it's tough lessons, and I've been through them. But to me, that's really important as well. To know, in its simplest definition, that if there's issues of protection needed or fairness, that you will step in. So that's really the broadest terms I can use. If you can do that and develop a reputation for doing that, you're going to build a wonderful community. Both professionally and personally. It's a big question. What do people want? I think, I would go back to that. I go back to everything I've just said. Let's start with being friends, making sure people feel that they're part of a network, and then gently guiding their enthusiasm, their skill and knowledge into something that helps others and the planet. And if they get a job out of that, that's great. Instead of you're learning to get the job, and then someone else somewhere is going to take care of the planet and society, or the government will do it. We're in that place now. I think collectively have lost our way in letting always, somebody else is going to do it. And then there's always someone else to blame. And when you feel bad, you tend to fill that void with things. We're exactly in that point. And I think just pulling away from that, a little bit of solitude, having the right people around you, and picking something small, right? Say hello to somebody in the hallway. Sit down and don't let someone talk about gratitude. I challenge your listeners, who are you grateful for right now? Pick up the phone, write a letter, even if they're deceased. Why did you love them? Do it. And then you let that feeling go through your blood. The letter itself that takes you 20 minutes isn't what it's, obviously it's what it's about, but what I mean is it's not the 20 minutes. It stays with you. Start making your connections or reinforcing them. And if you have a lot, make more. And then you put the sustainability filter on it in terms of a topic and what you feel specifically you want to do. But that network is so important, and it absorbs all those words I just used: flourishing, sense of belonging, right? I'm easier to feel it and picture it somehow rather than talk about it. I often feel, although I make my living speaking, that words just don't do it. And maybe that's part of the spiritual journey. Maybe that's exactly part of it. Too many words, too much accent, too much involvement with memorizing things that we're supposed to put on a piece of paper, more words. I care less if someone understands or can define ecology. I want them to go outside and they understand. The gardeners know that. They understand the relationships. So we need to get back to that.
Absolutely. So, Chris, as you know, the purpose of this podcast is to inspire people to achieve greatness and enhance their overall personal well-being. So, what is your definition of greatness?
Well, on the spot, I think it would have to start with just being at peace with who you are. And for me, that's just being comfortable in my shoes. Who I am now with all my faults and where I am is okay. There's a calmness that comes with that. And I think when you are calm, stress and anxiety levels go down. And research, permit me to be the educator now and look at research. When stress is down, you have access to more imagination. We know that, right? Before a math test, people are nervous. You have more access to creativity. It's been proven, just looking at a poster of a nature scene, a beautiful beach or full moon, a fire, within seconds, you have more access to memory. So that's where the greatness starts. But the anxiety is like just this big dark blanket that crushes so much of what we have in our head. So I think, find your greatness, find those places where you feel you're part of it. And it's okay with all the faults, and work, get help and work on the strategies that you have to use to help you with the things perhaps that you need to. But I think for me, that's a starting point. And then you balance on that, raft of life, and you get more confidence as you stay on it. And I believe everyone has greatness in them. Who am I to define that to somebody else, right? It could be somebody who simply volunteers a lot and helps an elder. That's greatness, right, to that person. Somebody who has the ability to sequence their thoughts and play that sort of organizational game of chess. That's your greatness. Use it with the sustainability filter to create more network relationships. You're going to be great. And if it means it's with your neighbor, to me, that's greatness too. But find that nice spot that you have. And if everybody does it, imagine if everyone spent 10% of their time thinking about what makes them great, identify it, don't let anyone tell you you're not, and then share that greatness with someone else. That's all you have to do. We'd have a much better world.
Absolutely, I agree. It's not just about being great for you, but being great for everyone, right? And sharing that greatness. So, Chris, who is a future guest that you would like to see on this show?
Well, based on the topic that we have, it would be wonderful to talk to. I think if you interviewed 1 or 2 or 3 students from anywhere that have gone through this process, where they can talk about the inspiration they got from either their institution or from a particular teacher, and then unpack that, I think that's where you're going to find the greatness that anybody can have. There are reasons why some people say, I love English class. I love phys ed. And it's got an awful lot to do with who they first met. So what we need to do is fall in love for the same reasons through, again, this filter of helping the planet and each other, and then still continue with the disciplines behind that. And I think that's part of repurposing everything. So maybe I'd love to hear some inspirational stories. And sometimes from the youngest people, you hear the best things.
Awesome, Chris. So I'll keep an eye out on some of those stories, and I'll definitely be sure to reach out to you when I have a guest. So, Chris, where's the best place for our listeners to connect with you?
Well, if they want to learn more about what we do, which is in part is what I do, they can go to the Dawson College website. So Dawson College, and you'll find it on any search engine. And then sustainability will be part of that drop-down menu. And we have all of our programs and sustainable happiness, for example, that we're working hard on, and the different things that we offer at the college and through our partners on that website. And if they wanted to contact me, my contact information is there as well.
Okay, perfect, Chris. So I will make sure to add all that into the episode notes so everyone knows where they can go. And Chris, I just want to take a moment here to really thank you for your time today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all of your passion as well as knowledge and personal experiences. So thanks again, Chris, for being here today.
Thank you so much, and love the title. And I challenge all your listeners to take the time to find that greatness they feel they have and pass it on to someone else. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Living Your Greatness podcast. If this show has added value, please subscribe, leave a rating, and make a review.